barbecue capital of the world and home of Elvis Presley. Please welcome your co-host, Bob Furness.
A contact center job either finds you in a moment of need,
right,
or you find it in a moment of need, right? I need a job, and or it could be that I'm working an opportunity in a contact center.
And from the tornado capital of the world, home of the Oklahoma Sooners, here's your co-host, Amos Tanuma.
It must be Friday morning, Bob. My name is Amos, and I've got Bob with me. Bob, good morning. Good Friday morning.
Good morning, Amos. It's been a good week. Let's talk about contact centers.
Awesome. Let's jump right in. So, top of mind to me is, it's not a new trend, but it seems to be gaining legs now. It's this talk about turning the contact center into profit centers. I've been hearing this talk for years and years and years and years.
It's not new.
It's not new. It's not new at all. But I've always been a skeptic because most contact centers have been these cost centers that they want to, shrink as much as possible. But it's starting to, the reason I'm bringing it up to you, Bob, is because the big guys who sort of, your Accentures, your Deloittes, they're starting to, there's CSAT, like it's becoming a thing. And as you know, they have a way of driving things. So first and foremost, I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Really just start with, what does that mean to you? Whether it's this turning into a profit center, turning it into a contact center, this monetization of the contact center, what does it mean to you in practical terms? And then I would love your perspective on whether it's a real thing that folks who are listening should go chase.
Well, I think that the concept of, is my contact center a profit center, it depends on what you're measuring first, right? So if the measurement is how many sales specifically do I make on the phone call, and therefore what is my cost of the sale, that's one way to look at it. If I am involved in the e-commerce process, if I'm a retail or I'm involved in e-commerce, it could be measured by the fact that if somebody interacts with us in the middle of the sales cycle, are we completing the sales cycle, right?
Yeah.
It could be as specific as a mattress firm that we worked in, did some work in around service, and they wanted that agent to also offer sheets and pillowcases and add-on type items. And so profit center has a wide gambit of what that means. I think that's a good question when the executive says to you, I read this great article about our contact center becoming a profit center. How can we do that? I think your question is, tell me what a profit center is.
Right.
So,
and can you measure it? I mean, you said that it's not new, and it's not new at all. I remember being in rooms decades ago when I would say, well, you're not giving me credit for my sales. So in other words, they would say, I was like, no, when a customer calls in the middle of the transaction and I answer their question and and I do this, I'm adding revenue to the company, sometimes indirectly. I mean, and then I remember being in an e-commerce world. In this world, we were selling flowers. And the reality of flowers is 90% of them at the time were being sold online. But those 90% that are being sold online, half of those 90% involved a customer interaction. What that meant was the American public, mostly males, were very uncomfortable with buying flowers. So they wanted some validation. Now, they still bought it online, but they wanted... So again, part of the squishiness in this, and what Bob said is so spot on, is that you need to be clear on how we're tracking this thing, what it actually means, so that, you're tracking it appropriately and we're not just kidding ourselves. Because I used to make the argument then that it wouldn't take me long to pay for myself because I was seeing plenty of revenue generating activity. Some of them were direct in that we were doing the thing. Some of them were indirect in that we were supporting the sale. But without us, the sale didn't happen, right? So yeah, you got to ask those questions in your organization so that there's clarity on what it actually means.
Well, and I'll give you one on the back end. Your save group that says a customer's about to disconnect.
Yeah.
And they don't disconnect.
Yeah.
I should get some sort of credit for the rest of the revenue that he has over the next 3 to 5 years because I held on to him or her, right? Is that a profit center? Well, it's definitely bringing money into the company. So, if you'll slow down your sales and SG&A, your sales cost, we'll make some profit off of those people. Quit sending your people to Cancun.
Exactly. So yeah, we have always been a part of sales and revenue, whether that's revenue generation, revenue saving, preventing leakage, credits. I mean, name it. We've always been a part of the deal. But I want to talk a little bit about a different flavor of this, which is more on the IT side, which is this contact center as a service. And so the theory goes, all this movement to the cloud, which you and I are talking to people on a daily basis doing. The thought now is I now have this flexible contact center suite, right? It's all in the cloud. I've got my telephony, And so the idea is, well, where else can I deploy? If I'm in a B2B world, can I extend it to my my clients in a big organization? Can the contact centers now start charging people? Hey, marketing wants us to do this campaign and they want us to make this calls. There is a cost for this, And so we've made all this investments. Let's go socialize what we can do for all of these other groups. And it be a service that there is some monetary, it may be financial engineering where we just build in one department, but there is some, what do you think about that side? Because that's the one that I've seen the big guys, the Gartner and all of them are writing about, which it's a different spin on this monetization of the contact center. This is more on the IT side.
I think you're smarter than I am if you can figure out how to make money being an outsourced provider in your company.
The BPO has been doing it, right? Like
what?
That's what BPO. You're competing with them, and they do it for a living, right?
Yeah, but you're not a BPO. You're in the house. You're inside the cost structure of your organization, right. And meanwhile the BPO has cut every corner. They're in 2x2 cubes. They cut every known cut out of the cost structure to make money. So I can't imagine that running my contact center at Bell South, which is now AT&T, that I wanted to take on a whole new structure unless it's something that I'm looking at improving the experience, right, to improve what's happening in the company. And in that case, am I going to charge you per hour because I'm going to start taking on that part of your organization? Perhaps. Yeah,
I think it's in its infancy, and you're right. I think you're going to, so in other words, the best use case I've heard is this large organization that actually has one large contact center, but has these many places where phone calls happen, right? Like you have these parts of the organizations where people call you, someone responds to email, it's not in the contact center. So what they're doing is instead of just going to those guys and say, let's take those things off of your hands, they're going to them saying, you keep your people.
We'll charge you.
We'll charge you. Again, seems like financial engineering. So we'll keep an eye on that, and I'll bring it up in the show.
Yeah.
I want to pivot to my oddball question of the week and things I sort of pay attention to. So GameStop is popular. I know everyone knows. I mean, I have my great aunt calling me about GameStop. Right? She doesn't know what a stock is. Right? She's like, should I buy this thing? I hear people are going, right? So go, no. Stay away. You don't even know what GameStop is. But they did an interesting move this week, which I thought is very symbolic of where we are. They came out to the street and basically wanted to tell the street that, look, hey, the rumors of our demise have been greatly exaggerated. We actually do have a plan. We're a real company. We're going to blah, blah, blah. We're going to digitize and that. But one of their key hires is an SVP of customer care. And it wasn't even one of these deal, right? Like, it wasn't the squishy, because I looked it up. Squishy sort of CX. No, it was a very, and they came out and said, because of they hired a new CTO and this SVP of care, and basically the pitch, as someone who was looking at them from a stock perspective, was because of these two guys, watch out, world, we are coming. So what I want to ask you is, does this mean we have arrived? Does this mean, are we at a place where now, organizations are now saying, because we've been talking about care as a differentiator, and I've always been skeptical, because when it comes down to it, people don't, have we gotten to that place now where you will see more and more of this, where people come in, and I almost want to separate the CX, the broad CX that can be ubiquitous, to care, contact center, service, becomes front and center how I'm going to differentiate, and frankly, and no one laughed at them. People took them very seriously. Have we arrived, Bob, is my question. Are we in the room now? Are we in the front of the room? Where are we?
I think we're in the room. I think we have a voice, and whether we want to be or not, we're probably standing at the front of the room trying to explain how we're going to improve service, or how we're going to impact the company from a service perspective.
Right.
I don't know whether GameStop was trying to handle the fact that they probably had 500 calls on hold, people asking them about their stock, or whether they truthfully were trying to differentiate themselves. If you think about their marketplace, their struggle right now is that gamers, I'm not a gamer, but I've done some work in that field, in that marketplace. Gamers are downloading games onto their, for a store who sells something, to think that they're not going to go the way of Blockbuster is how this all started to begin with. But it sounds as if what they're saying is, we're going to provide you with a better experience with your game. If you buy the game from us and you have questions, we're going to be able to answer them. We're going to be able to support you. We're going to take care of you as a customer. And I don't know what their cost strategy is around that, because they're already paying retail to be in the mall. Although we've seen the demise of malls, so maybe the cost of retail is so much lower than it was 5 years ago. They're not dealing with that. But
Well, Bob, a good parallel is, I remember, I know how many years ago, time's all blending together now, where I was selling my Best Buy stock because I thought they were going to get killed by Amazon. I thought it was dead, and they've had a second act, and so it's not easy. There is a thesis for, and what Best Buy basically did was along the lines of what you're talking about, which is sort of going, hey, look, we'll compete with Amazon on price. We'll do price match. They check that box. But look at all of this thing we're going to give you. We're going to have these people to set up your deal, do installation, do all of these things. And frankly, forced Amazon now, after they did that, it was several years ago, now when you order an electronic on Amazon, they try to sell you installation services as well, because they've seen that this is why you go into a Best Buy. So maybe GameStop has I'll teach you how to beat. Maybe my son will one day go in there to learn how to beat whatever game he's playing. But I thought it was a positive that at least they were coming out at the company level and saying, based on this bet, we will win.
Well, I think that you're also seeing that in advertisements on TV talking about their service, right?
Yeah.
The contact center is part of our identity now.
Discover, right? I think Discover is one of those companies. It's their whole thing.
Part of our identity is who we are in the contact center. State Farm's another one.
Yeah. That's crazy. Discover literally says, call us and a real live person will talk to you. And you go look at the Discover's mix. Their customers actually skew younger versus Visa and Master. So that to me is it tells you going against the grain. Like everyone's saying these kids don't want to call, blah, blah, blah. And they're going out and they have one of the highest satisfactions in the industry. So there's a there. Let's go to questions. Questions for the community. We get plenty of questions around metrics. There may be a reason for that. So we have another one around metrics. This one is, what would you consider more important, CSAT or FCR?
CSAT or FCR?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, they are both important. Which one's more important? CSAT, if I'm looking at my metrics from the company perspective. First call resolution, if I'm looking at my metrics through the eyes of the customer.
Yeah.
How about that? Because first call resolution drives the satisfaction of the customer. It would seem that one FCR would relate to CSAT, right?
Yeah.
If I have more first call resolution, and by the way, we'll chase a rabbit for a second. I used to be the guy that said there's no way to track first call resolution in my contact center.
Interesting.
But there was. It just wasn't like anyone else's.
Right.
So whether there's multiple ways, and we should do a whole show on first call resolution for the ones who don't know what FCR is. First call resolution, we should do a whole show on that. But measure it the way you understand to measure it, and then measure it again and see whether it got better based on what you did in between is the reality. Yeah,
and I would also add some nuance in saying that I tend to think about CSAT can be a leading measure and FCR can be a lagging one, meaning sometimes the customer doesn't know their issue has not been resolved, right? Like I call in, happened to all of us, right? I call in and I say da-da-da-da, and they say, oh, great, I'm going to issue you this credit. So if you survey me and say, how did I do? She was nice. She issued me the credits. I'm none the wiser. Well, she didn't issue the credit. She didn't hit submit or she didn't do any of that. So now a week later, I'm regretting that good grade I gave you because it's like, you know, what did I do all of that for, right? So I think there's also, you need Bob's initial answer of yes is frankly the right answer. You can't choose, ma'am. You just can't. Like, I don't know. I didn't get the full context of this question, but I think we're going to definitively tell you really can't choose because they're both important and but we will say to you, I think Bob will agree that if those are the only two metrics you're tracking, that's fine by us because those are really, 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 really important.
Well, I can also tell you if it's taken 3 or 4 times to solve your problem for FCR, and that's a low number, that your SAT scores are going to mimic them. So whichever one one's tied to the other, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not satisfied if you're not ever solving my problem.
Exactly. So Bob, I'm running out of time. Let's go to words of wisdom. You've got any nuggets of knowledge or wisdom you want to leave people with this week because they're going about their work?
Figure out what should be on your radars at the job that you're doing today, but figure out what should be on your radar for the next job that you want. So if you are responsible today as a supervisor for people's scorecards and whether they're answering the phone on time and their handle time and their coaching, yes, that should be on your radar screen, and you should understand what that is and how are you impacting that with the employees that you have that you're responsible for. But you should also be thinking, if you're one of those people, I really want to go a step further. What's on that person's radar screen, and
right.
how do you bring yourself up to begin to think about the things that matter one step above where you are today?
And I'll do mine. It'll be really quick. It's this idea that we are in the middle, be a change agent. And what I mean by that is this contact center industry, the reason we're doing this show, it is in the middle of a drastic change. We just won't know it yet, but I've watched these moments. We're in the middle of one of those.
Yep.
So you be that change agent. Don't let it happen to you. You, whether you're an agent or supervisor, you be the one who is front and center being that change agent. So we'll leave it there. And please subscribe, like our show, watch it on YouTube, go on Spotify, and
tell your friends and relatives, tell your friends, tell your relatives.
Exactly. And subscribe once. And Bob, it's been awesome. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, man.
Bye, everyone.
We want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Contact Center Show. If you would like to join the conversation, please visit us at contactcenter.tv. That is contact center, all one word, .tv. Or you can simply subscribe wherever you get your podcast. This has been a Beyond production.